I can hear something calling. It's calling me every day. If taking a chance is a crime, then I've got hell to pay. I've been walking the streets in my mind, trying to find a new day. Keep on searching until I will find, until I find a new way. I'm gonna say something, I hope you don't mind. It's time to rearrange. I walk round in circles, I'm going nowhere. It's time to make a change.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. I am your host, Charles Wallace, and welcome to the Bare Essentials podcast. As we continue on our journey to build a stronger community, I'm very excited to share with you all the Kindness Alliance, which is a unique, free of charge advertising initiative looking to support businesses that share in our core values. Each episode will look to spotlight a different member, celebrating their contributions and dedication to kindness. Would you like to get involved? Just visit the Kindness Alliance section on our website, www.thebareessentialspodcast.com, or just send me a message. And now, a huge thank you to this week's Kindness Alliance member.
Black Pad Coffee Company. Awesome coffee, supporting awesome dogs. Go grab some today at their website, www.blackpadcoffee.com.
Hey, Evan, how you doing today? Thanks for joining me. I appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate having me on. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah, same here. Glad we connected on social media. Definitely, you were doing some really cool, interesting things that I think you will really resonate with the audience. So I'm looking forward to it. Now, with that being said, would you mind doing a brief introduction of yourself?
Absolutely. It's interesting, Charles. This is in 5 months, it's the first time I've ever been on social media. So this has been a massive challenge for me, but it's been very interesting. So my name is Evan Marks. I am a mental performance coach and founder of the M1 Performance Group. I've been a coach for about 7 years. I started M1 actually January 2024 after working for a coaching group for about 6 years, 6.5 years. But prior to that, I'm 52 years old. I spent most of my career on Wall Street. I was a hedge fund guy. And I did that for about 23, 25 years. And it came to a point where I realized that I didn't want to have a life of regret. And I always wanted to be a coach. And I had an opportunity to work with this terrific woman. She took me under her wing. And before you know it, I was coaching Jimmy Johnson at Hendrick Motorsports on his pit crew team. So it's been, like I said, 7 years. I coach anywhere from NASCAR, professional athletes, C-suite executives, and obviously Wall Street professionals. And what makes us a little different is we take modern psychoanalysis meets the latest research in neuroscience. So basically where you came from and actually how the brain actually works and how the brain predicts. And what we try to do is we understand that emotions are data, and we know that we can change behavior. And when you put those two together, we can actually create one, new pathways in the brain, and two, you create new experiences that actually, and when in the past we used to survive, and now we actually have the opportunity to thrive. And it's fascinating. You know, it's a totally different way to look at coaching, and knock wood, we've had some good success. So that's me in a nutshell.
Yeah, Evan, that's why I was really interested to get you on here. I felt like it definitely was a bit different outside the box, and I was intrigued by the science behind it, and I thought it was a bit of a different approach, and that's what really made me want to have this conversation today. You mentioned it a little bit, but how about we start here? Going from Wall Street to starting out coaching NASCAR pit crews, that's a big shift. What?
Yeah,
Was there a moment that you just were kind of like, you felt like you were jumping into the unknown, and then how does that uncertainty shape your whole coaching philosophy?
You know, it's interesting. I was a Division I lacrosse player at University of Pennsylvania, and Penn is just a known incubator for obviously entrepreneurs and business, but also Wall Street. And it was one of those things that I feel like I was pushed into it, but unfortunately I was pretty good at it. But I've always wanted to be a teacher and a coach my whole life. And I guess 25 years, on Wall Street took me away from that. And actually, Charles, when I was 46, I thought I had a heart attack. Mm-hmm. And I was at the top of my career. And I remember I have 2 daughters and my wife. We live in New Jersey. And I was getting on the train and my brain wasn't working properly. And I wasn't feeling right. I was dizzy. And I was talking to my assistant saying, I think something's wrong here. And I remember getting home and getting out of my car, which is probably not the most responsible thing to drive. And it was almost like I had 27 martinis on the way to my house, getting back to my kitchen. My heart rate's racing, everything's racing. And I had to go to the hospital. I thought I was literally having a heart attack at 46 years old. My daughters were 6 and 4 at the time. And I look at my wife, I said, it's been a decent run. And she looks at me, she's like, are you crazy? You're not even done yet. We have so much more to do. And then I saw Neuroscience the next day. It's like, listen, your brain's fried. The amount of stress you put on yourself is insurmountable because you have to make a change. And then luckily I had my wife next to me because I think I'd still, stubbornness, keep trading. And I got lucky. An old coach of mine asked me, what are the odds I could work with her? And 6 months later, I sold my partnership. I was back in school for psychoanalytical theory and neuroscience. 3 months later, I'm down at Charlotte, North Carolina at Hendrick Motorsports, coaching Jimmy Johnson and his pit crew teams. And that's how I started. I'm very grateful, and it's very fortunate. But maybe it was meant to be. But I've never ever been happier in my life, and so I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, and I will say this, as you told that story, I think it's men being men, and probably why women live longer. My dad was 46 when he actually had a heart attack, and he decided it was a good idea that he had to finish loading the truck first before he would go to the hospital. He had work to do, told us. So he survived, but he loaded a whole truck during his heart attack and then went to the hospital. So yeah, that kind of reminded me of that. But yeah, I'm glad it wasn't a heart attack for you. And I'm glad that your wife was there and you were able to pursue this to kind of
you
get
and
your
me
health.
both. Yeah.
Yeah. So
It was a big change. Yeah, to say the least.
Evan, when I was doing some research and looking into some of the things you do, there was something I saw that I really found interesting, and it had me thinking a little bit. Pressure is a privilege. I think that's a really powerful mantra. And I think it's one thing to help people not fear it, but how do you help people deal with it in a way that it doesn't break them?
So I think we have to redefine what pressure is, right? So I deal with my clients are obviously in high pressure, high decision-making environments, period, the end. So now we know that we can't run away from pressure. So how do we reframe pressure that it's actually advantageous to be in certain pressure situations, right? Because pressure is a privilege, right? When I say privilege, it's a responsibility. Somebody believes in you to give this pressure to you because they believe that you can perform under significant pressure. So now pressure obviously can be very intense. So the question is, we always want to have the ability to be in a pressure situation, but understand how we could down-regulate it to a point where it doesn't have to be comfortable, but it's at a point where we can still make effective decisions. So now when we say, oh, I'm under pressure, as opposed to running away from it, we said, like, I'm fine under pressure because I know that if it's a 12, I can get it to a 7 through breath work, visualization, acknowledging the environment I'm in, and still able to be extremely optimal. So once we have that, goes back to mindset. Once we have that mindset, it's almost like, give me the ball. I'll take the ball. I've trained this way. I know how to give myself mental space where I'm not reacting under pressure, but I'm being proactive. I'm being conscious of my behavior. I'm not saying, Charles, that's void of nervousness, frustration, possible embarrassment, all these feelings, they're real. But we can't control our feelings. We only can control our behavior. So if we're able to give ourselves that mental space in these pressure situations, imagine how effective we can be. And that literally is mental performance. It's not reverting back to past behaviors that no longer serve us because it's familiar. It's actually giving ourselves a chance to succeed, to thrive in those moments. And I work with a lot of clients who are fortunately in those situations. It's really cool.
Yeah, man, you framed that really, really well. And yeah, I think a lot of times we're guilty of, and I know at least I was when I was younger, I think I had allowed pressure to kind of catch me off guard. And I think what you just said there about the mental preparedness really, really is a big thing in the way we react to it. So that was definitely, I could see why that would help your clients. Leads me to the next point. I think this, with pressure, it's almost being, self-aware. And we'll hear about self-awareness. People tout it as being transformative. That being the case, why do you think so many people are hesitant or afraid to become truly self-aware? And then how do you help them overcome this fear?
It's interesting. And I agree with you. Some people, I don't think they're consciously afraid of self-awareness. I think unconsciously they are. Because what happens is, when you talk about the modern psychoanalytical part of what I do, a lot of it's 0 to 14, 15, right? That's learned behavior. That's modeling. That's, our caregivers, the environments we grow in. And what happens is a lot of stuff that we've been wired with just doesn't work for us anymore. Where we were told as kids, don't feel this way. Be happy. We were never able to put words to our feelings. And what happens is as we grow up into adults, we really we're not able to deal with certain emotions. And what we do is we revert back to things that we've learned in the past. Now, I can tell you the truth, what I learned when I was 12 and now I'm 52 doesn't work the same. So what happens though, when we become aware, we really have to, and I always say we have to untangle the spaghetti. We have to actually look into our past, say, wow, what happened there? Now, I'm not saying everybody's had massive trauma, but many people have. We've dealt with a lot of things as children that now it becomes a form of resistance. We don't know why we keep doing the same things over and over again, but there is an anchor to the past. So my job is to understand where we're starting from. And it's very intimate. It's being very vulnerable, but we really have to go back and understand what was going on in the past in order to untangle that, understand how am I feeling and why. This is why I feel this way. This is why I run from fear. This is why I think money's this. This is why I get embarrassed in these moments, because a lot of people weren't validated as children, or they were taught a certain way. So we got to know where we're starting, because even though we're in a different environment and people think it's a different experience, but we're repeating the same behaviors because our feelings and behaviors are now literally neurologically in our brains linked, right? That's when they say bad habits are hard to break. So once we're aware to know that, okay, this is what's going on. I can't tell you, Charles, that you're never going to be nervous again, but I can tell you when we feel nervous and we're able to put space between that feeling and a behavior, we can really start to develop new experiences. And the great part is that we can constantly start choosing our behaviors. When I'm nervous, I used to panic. I used to just react. But what do you do now? Well, I know nervousness actually tells me to dial in. So now when I'm nervous, like my assistant used to say all the time when I was trading, how you feeling? I was going, very nervous. He goes, but you don't act nervous. I said, it's a big difference. I've worked on that. I'm allowed to feel nervous, but I know how to behave within that feeling. So nervousness doesn't get on the field. My conscious choice of behavior gets on the field. And what happens over the course of repetition, Charles, I start to form a new experience. So I welcome nervousness. I welcome pressure. I welcome it, right? I'm not running away because I know how to use it to my advantage. So these so-called negative feelings, now I know where they're coming from. I've untangled the spaghetti. All right, but I know how to behave with them. And so now when the brain predicts into the future, where it used to be, well, you used to do this, wait a second. I'm not doing that anymore. So now when we say bad habits are hard to break, we are actually in the brain neurologically forming new pathways. It's brilliant. It's marvelous. We all can do this, but it takes repetition. You know, like I always say, you have to slow down to speed up. And the slowing down doesn't mean taking your foot off the gas. The slowing down means we need to be really intentional in the beginning. We have to lay down these brakes because we're forming new behaviors that are coupled with existing feelings to form new experiences. Now, does it get easier? Of course, it's never easy, but it's that intentionality. And once you really slow down to get that, the speed up part is the leveraging of that. It's pretty wild. You're rewiring your brain, but you got to know what you're rewiring first. So when we think positive, like the whole positive psychology movement, it's now about well-being. And I think it's Morton, I forgot his last name. It was just on the tip of my tongue. He wrote a book called, I think it's called Refresh. It's a new one out. So I'm not a guy like, just think positive, just think positive. I don't think that way. I think optimistically, but I want my clients to have the ability that when stuff comes down the pipe, I can get my footing, right? I can feel what I want to feel, but I know how to choose a behavior that's going to be advantageous to me because I've experienced this already. I've evidence. Consistency with evidence builds confidence. It's pretty wild. Yeah, and that's what we do.
Yeah, you know what it is. And as I was listening to you, I start to think about just recently over in the European Soccer Championships, I read this article where one of the games that Portugal played, Cristiano Ronaldo had missed a penalty kick in the game. It goes to shootouts. And the article was about how they monitor their heart rate through the whole game. And as he was stepping up to take this shot in the shootouts, it was the lowest heart rate he had throughout the whole game. And hearing you explain that, though, I was thinking, you know what? That's probably some of these athletes, you know, high level guys. I was thinking about it. So you start to touch on it. So I definitely want to get into this some. So your whole coaching method of blending the psychoanalysis with the neuroscience, could you maybe share? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but is there any unconventional tech or would be viewed as an unconventional technique that you use that maybe has yielded like surprise results with your clients?
You know, it's interesting. Like clients always ask me when I'm going to see results. And I say, I don't know. What do you mean you don't know? I said, I don't know where we're starting from. So are there certain techniques? Well, you know, it's you know, I call it the M1 mental model where we acknowledge emotions, we verbalize them. Remember when I was thinking that, I was thinking I was nervous. But if we don't verbalize it, literally say, I'm feeling nervous right now. It stays in that darkness. Bringing it to light, we can hear it. We actually maybe can't see the word itself, but we can see the intensity in it. First of all, that starts to take down our system, right? So if we were in a fight or flight, which is the sympathetic nervous system, we can bring it to the parasympathetic, which is rest and digestion. But now we give it mental space, right? So I'm feeling nervous. Now there's space. All right, now I can ask a question, right? So self-exploratory questions put us in the seat of influence because we're conscious. Okay, what am I trying to accomplish right now? How do I want this to look? Okay, and now we choose a behavior. All right, now, you know what, me do this. Ronaldo. He knows viscerally that when his heart's racing, it's affecting his brain, right? Because the nervous system's in fight or flight. So I'm sure this gentleman trained that he could recognize his heart rate. Remember, because somatically, it's like a hair of a hair before the emotions kick in, right? Because that's fight or flight. So I'm sure he picks up on that, but he knows how to breathe, right? And he's done visualizations. So in that moment, he feels he's okay. I'm sure he feels nervous. Everybody has feelings. Ronaldo's got feeling, right? People in a coma have feeling. So now that you ask this question, you pick a behavior, and there's an experience. The more we do this, the more Ronaldo's done this, you want him taking that shot. Am I surprised this guy's heart rate is close to this? No. You know how many times he's rehearsed this in his brain? But do you know how many times he's been in this situation? That's not, and that's the whole point I was saying, you have to slow down to speed up. This is repetition. You know, I always say, like, you know, it almost looks like a megaphone, right? Where things start to compound. I always say progress in the beginning is elusive, right? Because we do certain things, we think they're inconsequential, but they're really not. So 2 and 2 is 4 is not a big number. 4 and 4 and 8 is not a big number. But you get into 1,000 and 2,000, 400 and 800, you're like, whoa, what the hell's happening here? So if we could take that and put that to behavior, all of a sudden it starts to build. Where this seems like nothing, then all of a sudden you look back like, how did I get here? It's been this intentional repetition, this intentional unconscious to the conscious, intentional reminding yourself to stay in the pocket, intentional about how we lay the foundation of a strong mental mindset. And all the greats do. I mean, let's talk about Simone Biles, right? What happened to her in Tokyo, right? To her going to therapy, her working on her mind. And she said it many times. When you look at Suni Lee, she writes things down. She rehearses in her mind. The guy who does the horse with the glasses, if you see him, he's rehearsing. Before he gets on is it called a horse? I think it's called the horse, right? Whatever that thing is called.
Yeah.
It's literally replaying in their brains. So all these people do it. So if they all do it, if all the greats do it, why aren't we doing it?
Mm. It's a great question. And, you know, I think, again, doing some research, seeing what you do, I thought this was somewhat poetic, but also challenging. I think the subconscious symphony, right? So, and I think this is hard, and I can only imagine how difficult this is for you, but how do you convince somebody to consciously tap into the subconscious?
Well, you know, it's interesting. It's very difficult, right? So when I mentioned resistance, there are painful memories in the childhood that we don't want to go to, right? So the unconscious is kind of protecting us. Like, you know, my upbringing wasn't very traditional. You know, my mother raised 3 boys on her own. I had an older brother who was handicapped. My father, unfortunately, became homeless, addicted to crack, all these things. And I don't remember a lot of stuff. So even when I was playing college ball, I blew my knees out twice, and it literally destroyed me. I was a student athlete, and I lost my identity. But I didn't want to tell anybody about my pain because I thought it was a weakness. And I struggled for 15 years until I met this gentleman and we started talking about it. And I trusted him. And we went to the depths of, I mean, this may sound a little poetic, of my soul, of this pain. It was pain. And once I started to talk about it, it's almost my vision started to open up a little bit. I felt safe. I felt validated. And then I was able to see, okay, what am I really capable of? So your question is, when I work with people, my job is to listen to what you're not saying. My job is to ask questions that are curious, open-ended, and to possibly stimulate your unconscious. It's very important because that's where lasting change happens. And I'm so grateful that the temperature of this country is shifting. where mental well-being or mental capital, there's a spotlight on it now. And we understand the importance of help, that our weaknesses actually are the growth ways to our actual progress, and all these other topics that have now been acceptable for men and women and children. It's terrific. But the unconscious is nuts, right? If I can make somebody 2% more conscious, it's a home run.
Wow.
We're not talking a massive shift here, right? Because remember, the unconscious still does all involuntary stuff for us. Heart rate, breathing, all these things. Just these little steps. And it's interesting because the unconscious doesn't know time. So we may not know why we do something today, but the more behavior changes, it's more almost like the unconscious says, hey, Charles, here, I think you can handle this, right? It comes out in dreams, right? A lot of my clients write down their dreams. They keep journals, right? They get it out. Like, dreams are incredible things. I mean, you think about Freud and his interpretation of dreams. The unconscious is telling you something. It's you know, and I won't leave it at this because we're going to continue, but I will say this. This process allows you to become a student of yourself. And I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that is I love that statement, becoming a student of yourself. I think that's really, really important. And I think it goes into, you mentioned it earlier about our emotions being data. I'll be honest, until you said that, I don't think, and I'm a data guy, I never thought of it that way. And, you know, I've always been big on trying to improve my own emotional intelligence, but I never really thought about my emotions being data points. And how do you approach recognizing your emotions with your clients and then treating it as data and then acting on that data?
Awesome question. So let's say we have a spectrum of 7 emotions, right? Let's talk about traders real quick. Let's say one, and we all have different emotions, right? So it's important that we all get more granular with an emotion, right? Where, for me, my most heightened out of panic, my number one is panic. And on the other end of the spectrum is euphoria. In the middle is nervousness, right? So you have 7 emotions and you want to write from panic to euphoria, right? The most intense perceived negative to the most elated. Let's say euphoria could be overconfident. Panic could be sheer terror, right? This is the range of emotions. So I know as a trader that when I'm panicked, it's a very bad place to make a decision. When I'm euphoric, it's probably my worst place to make a decision. Because I'm overconfident. I think I'm better than everybody else. Nobody knows anything. Now I'm trying to prove myself. So I'm not really trading anymore. I'm trying to prove something. Because maybe when I was a lacrosse player, I didn't get validated. I didn't get validated as a lacrosse player. So I'm going to show everybody. Right. So that's no longer what I'm trying to accomplish. But in the middle, nervousness for me was my go-to. So I really had to sit there and understand how I was feeling and the behavior that was necessary. So I'll just stick with trading a little bit, or you can do anything. When I'm panicked, I know now to give myself a little more space, to not react, because when you panic, you react. So I want to pick up on that data really quick. So I know that. But nervousness used to be, well, I'm nervous, I shouldn't do anything. Wait a second. What's the intensity of my nervousness? Is it nervousness or is it scared? But actually, when I'm nervous, I'm more dialed in than anything else. So my relationship with nervousness has completely changed. And so is my relationship with being panicked and euphoric. Why has it changed? I know what it means. I know what it's signaling. It's obviously an unconscious signal. Where panic could be, I'm embarrassed. Euphoric, I'm trying to prove myself. So I know the reason behind these feelings are data. And I know how to use them better than ever now. So now that I know this, so when I feel panicked through all this repetition and training, I'm confident in how to act. I'm not void of panic, but I'm confident in how I'm going to behave. So I acknowledge, I allow, I accept all these. They're all emotions. So is joy. So is panic. So is frustration. They're just emotions. But they give me a guide of my behavior and how I want to choose. It's pretty well. It's so interesting because it's almost like, Charles, you let go of the rope. Now, do I want to feel panic? Do I want to feel scared? It's not the most enjoyable thing, but I don't run away from it because I use it to my advantage. And remember, like, panic doesn't last long. It lasts as long as joy does sometimes. The body, the brain knows how to bring it back to a homeostatic level, back to the middle for, just for that equilibrium. The question is, panic feels long because you're sitting in it too long, as opposed to acknowledging it. Because you can't hang on to joy. It comes back. Right? But when we hang on to something, we hang on. Just let it go for a little bit. Acknowledge it. Verbalize it. Now we're not scared of these things. They're just emotions like anything else. It's a very freeing feeling to understand that and to really, really implement that and to really put it into work. And it all comes with that mental space, like we said earlier. Because it's reality, right? This is the real stuff. Can't think positive all the time. It's not going to be roses every day, but I want to know I can handle it.
Yeah, I think for me personally, I think one of the biggest things I'm going to take from our conversation is, I think what you just helped me with was, just by considering my emotions data, that'll actually help me be able to not let them get too far out of control, to see them for what it is, per se. Like, that's a really good way to look at it, that it's a point, it's a data point like anything else. So that I thank you for that, because I can tell you, for me personally and professionally, I'm always working on the emotional intelligence and ways to handle it. But that was a game changer for me. So thanks.
You're welcome.
One of the other things I want to ask about was, we hear this a lot, and it's true, about small actions lead to big impacts. It's really compelling. I was thinking about this, though, and I wanted to kind of get your take on it. I feel like the biggest issue with that is patience. People lack patience. It's instant gratification. And we don't allow ourselves to have those small actions to big impacts. We're always looking to go bigger, go further, right? So how do you kind of get people to dial in and really look at those small wins and keep piling them up?
Instant gratification is a big one, right? It's a big one, right? So because these small things, me putting down that third slice of pizza when I only want to have two, that may seem inconsequential to the rest of the world, but to me, it's a big deal because it was a choice. It was a conscious choice, right? So the question is, then how do you stick with, we know you have to start small in order to build something that's scalable, sustainable, and consistent for growth. We know it, right? That's intellectual, right? But we know that. But there's an emotional blanket that's wrapped around that, right? That doesn't let you do it. Even though we know we should be doing this, we know it works. It's been proven that it's a ripple effect. Like I was talking about a megaphone. We know it works. Then why can't people follow that roadmap? The best part, it's been proven the best way to go about that is to give yourself a little bit of credit. Like, I put down that slice of pizza. Now this whole audience must be like, what the hell is he talking about? But I didn't want to eat it, right? I'm working that hard. I'm in good shape. I told myself I just wanted to because I had a nice big salad. But for me, it's like, it's not a cowboy cheerleading party. Don't get me wrong. It's nice job, Ed. You start giving yourself a little bit of credit along the way, watch what happens. I don't care if it's a Thursday evening and you felt like you didn't want to go for a walk, but you did it anyway, good job. Because it starts to build. It may not happen in 2 months, but when it starts to click, don't think that Thursday walk that you didn't go on wasn't inconsequential. It was. But the key is that it is not insignificant. We are forming new pathways. It takes repetition. Give yourself a little credit. And I don't care how silly it sounds. I care less. Good job having 8 glasses of water today with some Himalayan sea salt in there, right? So I stay hydrated. Give yourself a little credit. I never did that. You know, it's funny. Like people are like, how do you know it works? I go, one, I never did it. It didn't work, right? I went the other way. And two, I've seen it now. I've been doing this long enough, and I'm a guinea pig on myself, that this little, good job, right? Good job, right? A little smile goes a long way. Because when you look back 6 months later and you say, can I curse on this podcast?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. How the fuck did I get here? Don't think that Thursday evening walk without putting out that third slice of pizza had something to do with it too. Don't think it didn't. Right? And let's say you had that third slice of pizza. You say, you know what? All right, what did I do well today? I did this, this, and this, right? Now the third slice of pizza, I could ruminate about that, or I could say, all right, tomorrow I'm going to get better at that and keep the momentum going, right? Remember, ruminating is a behavior. All right, I did. All right, I need to get better at that. You know, my momentum continues.
Yeah, that's you know, it's fascinating and it's funny to me because you talked earlier about the conscious and the subconscious, and as you were telling that story, I have my own health issues and weight loss, and it's funny. I tell this story, I remember, and it didn't seem like a big deal at the time, but I look back at my own journey. It may have been the biggest thing that happened. There was a bag of M&Ms on the table. There was one M&M outside the bag. Usually I would have ate that M&M and then maybe ate more. I dropped the M&M back in the bag and I put the whole bag into the cabinet. And I knew at that point in time, and I look back now, it may seem like the smallest thing that ever happened, but that was the turning point for my life change. And it started with putting an M&M, one M&M back in the damn bag, Evan. So, but consciously,
that gave me the chills, by the way.
I didn't realize it. I didn't realize it till after it happened, you know? So now that's really, you've had some great nuggets on this, man. I'm enjoying this because I told you about the emotions as data. Something else you said that I'm personally going to, you know, we always talk about building the best version of yourself. You said a word that I don't think I've ever thought about in this context, scalable. I'm in processes with data and I think about scaling everything, but you know what I never thought about, Evan? Scaling to become the best version of myself. So I think this is really going to help a lot of people. So I got to ask, you're doing some great stuff. When you look ahead, where do you see M1 Performance Group going? And then how do you see your coaching and your philosophies evolving?
You know, I'll go with philosophies first. Like, I remember I used to have this, and I practice curiosity, open-minded. And I used to be like, this positive psychology crap, it's nothing. It's toxic. Well, certain parts of it, I do believe, extreme, are toxic. However, I think there's certain parts in there that kind of make a little sense to me. So let me take a little bit of that. That fits into my philosophy. So as I evolve as a coach and as more information's out there and stuff like that, I have to make sure that my process, my mindset, my knowledge base is always growing, right? Because I want the best for my clients. So I'm always learning. I'm fascinated by this stuff. You know, Nick Saban says we have such a huge capability gap that some of us are in the first, second inning. And I think that is awesome. Remember, it's precision over perfection. You know, you never, you know, I got it. I don't know, got what? If I got it, I got to be 6 feet under. That's what I got. Like, I want to be growing. I want to be consolidating and growing, right? And we talk about scale. I want to leverage what I have. like, it's not that I'm chasing more is better, but I'm chasing a brighter vision of what's possible. Now, is that helping others? Is that better? I think it consumes everything. So when you talk about M1, my vision always is trickled down. I want to affect people in high situations so they can help others. Cultures breed exceptional performance, but I think they take it home too. I think hey, little Johnny, it's all right to feel this way. Why don't you have a moment and feel your emotions and tell me why and how you're feeling? That's important. I mean, I want to grow M1. I'm going to bring on more coaches. There's been, luckily, before I started M1, I had a great clientele base, and I still have them. But doing more speaking engagements. I work with corporations already, but I think it's important, not just M1, but mental health, mental fortitude, giving ourselves space to feel and behave. I think it's great for everybody, young and old. I mean, we always can change. Neuroplasticity is real, but so is our past anchors are real. You got to untangle that sometimes. It's not serving us anymore. So, I'm 52. When they say goodbye and they open up the gates, I hope I'm still doing this. This is, Charles, I wake up so grateful to be able to do this and serve others. And there is an altruistic part of this. I mean, it's not a bad business either. I'm not going to lie to you. It's been a very good business. But when you see people, their eyes light up and their behavior shift and they start to validate themselves. I mean, when you see people get better and stronger and be able to deal in different situations, I mean, come on. There's no better feeling when you see other people on the road to fulfillment, to living their best life because they're conscious about it. I feel extremely fortunate, like I said before, very fortunate.
Yeah, man, you're doing really, in my opinion, it's really important work, and over my last, my own journey for the last 3 years, I've come in contact with guys like you, people that are out there doing this work, working on the mind along with the body. I think it's super, super important, man. How can people get a hold of you?
So my website is m1performancegroup.com. You can book an Evan call, a discovery call. Hopefully before this comes out, I'll shoot you I think I gave you the one pager with, there's the M1 mental model. There's obviously the area to do a discovery call, and there's a couple of coaching questions. And I'm on LinkedIn at Evan Marks. I'm at emarks72 on Instagram. I think it's the same on Twitter. And once my daughter comes home from camp, I'll figure out what my password to my TikTok account is, because my team wants me to go on that. So I got to wait for her. My IT team's coming home in a week. So they're going to help me out.
Fantastic, man. Yeah, and I'll make sure to have a bunch of that in the show notes so people can easily click and find you. Well, Evan, listen, man, I'm happy to be able to have connected with you. Looking forward to following along on social media. I personally have gotten a lot out of this, and I tell people all the time, selfishly, I think I do this as much for me as for other people. I just love doing it, speaking to guys like you. I think people are going to get a lot out of this. So again, thank you. Thanks for everybody who listened and watched. I really, really appreciate it. Evan, you take care and good luck with everything.
Charles, thanks for contacting me. It's been terrific, and I hope we continue this relationship.
Absolutely. Take care, everybody. Thanks. Bye.
This has been the Bare Essentials. Thanks for listening, and remember, never hibernate on your goals.